Our cultural and religious landscape is, at its root, a tapestry woven from diverse ancient traditions. What we call Christianity, for example, did not emerge in isolation but was shaped by the fusion of Egyptian mysticism, Roman religious thought, and even strands of Hindu philosophy. By blending these disparate belief systems, ancient Egyptian symbolism, Roman mystery cult practices, and Hindu concepts of the divine, early Christian doctrine became a wholly new, hybrid religion. The six-pointed star appears in two distinct forms. One, our own Ankh-based star, and the other, an interlocking design tied to external, extraterrestrial intelligences. When we see that interlocking star used, especially in modern occult or pop culture contexts, it signals an invocation of those non-human influences. Symbols on the US dollar bill, like the eagle clutching clusters of arrows and olive branches, or the clusters of stars above its head, mirror this hidden heritage. They point back to these play teams or extraterrestrial orders, not as malevolent forces in themselves, but as architects of our social structures. Just as a well-built apartment complex can be overtaken by its current occupants, first intended for uplift, but later besieged by poverty and crime, so too can powerful ideas be co-opted over time. This pattern extends into the music industry, where what is popularly called the Illuminati is better understood as an underground order of witches, warlocks, and power brokers, some of whom hold high political office. Their strategy has been to infiltrate legitimate organizations, like Freemasonry, and ascend to positions where they can influence governors, lawyers, politicians, actors, and musicians. Once entrenched, they leverage artists' reach, millions of record buyers, to cast spells across entire populations. Artists who refuse to cooperate find their careers derailed by legal troubles, tax audits, the Irish, or sudden financial ruin, while those who comply find themselves signing multi-million-dollar deals and promoting occult symbols, often under duress. The case of Prince illustrates this vividly. In the 1980s, he was offered an unprecedented $40 million for a 10-album deal, but soon realized he was being pimped. He no longer owned his own name or music. He rebelled by changing his name to an unpronounceable symbol, highlighting how industry giants control artists' identities and revenues. Attempts by hip-hop moguls Suge Knight, Jay Prince, and Irv Gotti to start their own distribution company were thwarted by racketeering indictments and government pressure, demonstrating that real power lies in control of distribution channels, not creation alone. On a deeper level, our so-called races have been manipulated through genetic tinkering and crossbreeding by extraterrestrial beings with distinct agendas. Just as dog breeders select for particular traits, speed, strength, temperament, these otherworldly forces have engineered human lineages to serve various functions: warriors, administrators, even food sources. The darkest-skinned peoples are, in truth, genetically supreme, but the lighter-skinned often demonize or despise them out of envy. Monuments in Washington, D.C., feature African motifs not to celebrate black achievement, but to appropriate and venerate what the dominant class secretly covets, all while keeping the original peoples intellectually and spiritually enslaved. At the core of these manipulations lies a cycle, 6,000 years of a sleep spell that has programmed humanity to revere only light-skinned leaders, dismissing darker ones despite their genetic and spiritual primacy. Our current understanding of racism is therefore incomplete. The true race we should examine is not color, but the race of the soul, our internal nature and inclinations, determined by our genetic heritage and influenced by interstellar patronage. Recognizing the physical markers, eye color, hair texture, bone structure, allows us to anticipate behaviors and safeguard our communities against those whose agendas conflict with our own. In sum, what we call religion, politics, and culture has been shaped by millennia of cross-cultural fusion, covert extraterrestrial intervention, and calculated psychological manipulation. To reclaim our sovereignty, spiritual, genetic, and economic, we must first understand these hidden histories, take control of our own distribution, in art, media, and ideas, and honor the genetic destiny inscribed in our bodies, rather than the imposed myths that keep us divided. One of the earliest questions posed is, what was before God? To answer that, we must first understand what God is, and what God is not, by tracing the language itself. In the Hebrew text of Genesis 1:1, the term translated God as Elohim, Strong's number 430, a plural noun. Note the plural suffix im, that encompasses powers, judges, rulers, or angels. Its singular form is El, Strong's number 410. Thus, the very first line of Genesis, in the beginning God created, literally reads in the beginning these beings reconstructed, the heavens and the earth. By Genesis 1:26, that plurality is explicit, and Elohim said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." A conversation among these beings. Later, in Genesis 1:27, God, Elohim, created man in his, singular El's, own image, as if one member of the council acted on their collective decision. Then in Psalm 82, we read of El standing in the congregation of the mighty where he judges among the gods, declaring, I said, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Here the Most High is Elyon, the supreme power above the council. So, before God as the Most High, there existed this assembly of powerful beings, the Elohim, who oversaw creation. But who are these beings, and where did they come from? To uncover that, we turn beyond the Bible to ancient Mesopotamian texts, tablets like the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, which predate Genesis and tell of the Anunnaki, a pantheon of extraterrestrial intelligences who came to Earth millennia ago. According to those tablets, two brothers, Enki and Enlil, quarreled over humanity. Enki sought to guide and uplift mortals, Enlil, desiring control, imposed strict limits. Their rivalry sowed chaos, reshaping early civilizations. These Anunnaki, being physical beings endowed with life and spirit, appeared godlike to primitive humanity, like us landing in an alien landscape with iPhones and cars. Their advanced technology and knowledge of flight, medicine, agriculture, and more seemed miraculous. Over time, stories of floods, divine councils, and world-reshaping wars were recorded in cuneiform long before they found their way into Hebrew scripture. Dr. York compiled these parallels in his holy tablets, revealing how the biblical flood and Genesis creation account mirror the Gilgamesh epic. When Enki and Enlil's feud erupted, it mirrored the patterns we see today. They were immortal, powerful, flawed, jealous, ambitious, protective of their own interests, and their disputes birthed the same discord that plagues modern religions and nations. We see it in the illusory struggle of good versus evil, though good and evil are constructs born of doctrine. In truth, each faction acted according to its nature, just as today we observe different species and genetic lineages clashing on Earth. This brings us to humanity itself, genetic hybrids. Dr. York taught that the Anunnaki seeded Earth with various extraterrestrial races, Andromedans, Taurans, Pleiadians, Orionites, Draconians, and more, each with its own ways. To survive Earth's environment, they blended their DNA with proto-human stock, giving rise to multiple human species, Dravidians, Caucasoids, Mongoloids, Negroids, and sub-tribal offshoots. Just as lions and tigers rarely integrate, these human lineages carried distinct traits, temperaments, and cultural predispositions, creating the genetic tapestry we see today. When the transatlantic slave trade forced Africans into alien lands, they could not instantly adopt European customs. Those behaviors were not encoded in their DNA. Over generations, some assimilation occurred, but fractures remained. Similarly, when any distinct lineage is uprooted, clash follows, for environment shapes expression. This genetic and cultural mixing, draped in theologies that proclaim unity but practice division, echoes the ancient celestial rivalries. The same arguments, over power, land, belief, repeat in different forms. So, before God as the Most High was this council of Elohim, Anunnaki spirits embodied in flesh, arriving, ruling, and arguing among themselves. Their legacy lives on in the texts they inspired and in our own genetics, our societies, and our conflicts. The world's problems today, religious schisms, racial tensions, political power plays, are direct reflections of those primeval struggles. As Dr. York taught, true wisdom comes not from blind faith but from overstanding our past, to investigate, to question, and to seek the roots of every belief so that we may finally grow beyond them. If you study the way a preacher raised on a plantation, literally the house slave who became reverend, pastor or minister preaches today, you'll notice he often mimics the cadence and scriptural references of his white counterparts, despite an entirely different cultural heritage. Heel in tone, now let us turn to Psalms 24:15, and deliver the same doctrine your enslavers used, but repackaged in an accent and tone you recognize. Over 400 years, this process of cultural hybridization transformed African captives into so-called Negroids no longer fully African, yet not genuinely Caucasian either. Simply dark-skinned Christians who eat the colonizers' foods, wear their colognes, adopt their fashions, worship their God, and even intermarry with their women. When you hear black power, ask yourself, power over what? You've abandoned your indigenous practices, your original faiths, your vibrant foods, your native languages, so what exactly are you empowering? Consider the paradox of working for a company you know sells poison to your community. You handle and distribute these harmful products, watching friends and family suffer side effects, yet you profit by perpetuating the damage. You champion the white man's chains, but in reality trade is neutral. Lapis lazuli and silver, gold and ivory have long been exchanged across continents without cultural erasure. The problem arises when you import white religion wholesale and label it black, as if attaching your skin color to a foreign doctrine makes it yours. If I say African, Everyone understands. I don't need to say Black African. Yet we prefix Black Christian, Black Muslim, Black Hindu onto traditions that have nothing to do with our ancestral spirituality, as if that label alone grants authenticity. Then there's universal love, the notion that Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, or Allah loves everyone equally. Sounds beautiful until you try it out in nature. You can't approach a lion or a crocodile declaring, "I love you," expecting reciprocation. Nature operates on context, not platitudes. True universal love is respect for the laws of nature and each being's rightful place within it, not an indiscriminate, sentimental embrace divorced from reality. Yet modern spiritual seekers, hippies and self-masters claim they can transcend all difference through love alone, rejecting the need for guidance or structured learning. But mastery requires transmission from one who has walked the path. Unmediated love is chaos. Untethered from context, it becomes a hollow ideal. Religious doctrines promise liberation from worldly concerns, poverty, hunger, alienation, yet demand we hand over our material possessions, our labor, our autonomy, to priests and prophets while they live in comfort. They vilify Egypt as pagan, yet every major scripture borrows from Egyptian cosmology, law and ritual. Pharaoh's temple musicians, astronomers and architects built societies so advanced that later conquerors could only steal their knowledge. Meanwhile, we're told to worship a god who gives us famine, then supposedly provides heavenly manna, all while Egyptian priests govern their own affairs and we plead at the altar for scraps. How, then, can faithful Jews, or Christians, or Muslims, claim chosen status while standing destitute, dependent upon foreign rulers for survival? Even inside the Black Christian world, film and media reinforce the same sanitized narratives. Jump the Broom, Harriet, The Passion of the Christ remade with Black actors. What we need is our own storytelling, a contemporary Kendrick Road or Wooden Avenue that reflects our real struggles and triumphs, set in Harlem and Compton, Soweto and Dakar, not sanitized versions of someone else's past. Beyond religion, our collective vibrational frequency has been suppressed. Ancestral Africa placed us nearest the source, a 9-ether frequency, the highest resonance that linked us to spirit, intuition and cosmic consciousness. Other races vibrate lower, tribes at 7, Mongoloids and Arabs around 6, and Caucasians at the lowest bands, trapped by hope and fear, the tools of control. By uprooting us, by severing us from our foods, our sunlight, our music and our sacred lands, the plantation pastors lowered our vibrational frequency from 9 down to 6. That veil still blinds us today. We mimic foreign doctrines and rhythms, unaware that our true power lies in restoring our original vibration. To reclaim ourselves, we must first outgrow the doctrines forced upon us. We must reject the notion that universal love absolves injustice, that assimilation equals progress, that black versions of white religions are somehow authentic. We must remember that everything vibrates, every atom, every thought, every culture, and that as Africans we once sat at the planet's energetic pinnacle. Nourished by our sun, our earth, our waters, we thrived in harmony with nature's laws. Our foods, our rhythms, our languages were tuned to our ancestral frequency. The path forward is not sentimental piety or blind adoption of foreign creeds. It is to study our own heritage, to learn from masters rooted in our traditions, to rebuild our communities on principles forged in African soils. Only by raising our collective vibration, through appropriate diet, language reclamation, sacred ceremony, and authentic art, can we return to our rightful place as the planet's ancestral stewards. Then, and only then, will Black power mean real power, the power to govern ourselves, to heal our communities, and to stand once more as the first seated people of the earth. Throughout history, powerful civilizations have risen and fallen according to grand cosmic cycles. Every 6,000 years or so, the Sun People era replaces the Moon People era, and vice versa, much like summer yielding to winter. In the Sun cycle, humanity thrives, knowledge flourishes, and life bursts forth. In the Moon cycle, resources dwindle, plants and animals hibernate, and a different people ascend. In this case, those I call the Winter People, the Caucasians, whose dominion corresponds with that season of contraction and hardship. At the end of the last moon cycle in the year 2000, it was time for us, the descendants of ancient Negroid civilizations, to awaken once more. Our ancestors, the Egyptians, Nubians, Cushites, and countless other black nations, were once masters of gold, milk, and honey, wielding advanced sciences, mathematics, and spiritual wisdom. Yet, it was our boundless compassion, our willingness to open Africa's doors to any visitor, to share our bounty and our ceremonies, that became the instrument of our undoing. We welcomed warlike invaders whose gods, unlike ours, glorify violence. These newcomers carried swords and crosses and spread their religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, by the blade rather than by universal love. They borrowed the 3 degrees of our sacred mysteries, distorted them, and then claimed credit. Greek children are taught that mathematics and science sprang fully formed from Plato and Euclid, while Christopher Columbus discovered lands already teeming with life. Genetically and spiritually, these invaders are our albino experiments, extraterrestrial directors interceded in Earth's past, breeding new species in subterranean caves during the last sun cycle. Abraham himself, under the guidance of Egypt's Amenhotep, sought to civilize these beings, but compassion has 2 sides. What enriches can also weaken when abused. Thus we lost our ancient ways and sank into amnesia, forgetting the heritage encoded in our DNA, waiting for the cycle to turn again. Every civilization knows numbers, but our system of 3, 6, and 9 is unique. 9 signifies ascension, a return to higher consciousness, spiraling ever upward beyond the completion of a cycle. That same 9 appears in our hair textures, curls and coils that point ever inward and upward, a living emblem of our cosmic potential. As Africans, we were attuned to the sun's life-giving energy, photosynthetic in our very eyes and flesh, absorbing sunlight for 9 hours a day to fuel body and spirit. Modern practices like sun-gazing echo ancient Hindu extremes, yet true nourishment comes from balanced exposure, not from staring until blindness. Our spiritual contributions run deep. The concept of the Messiah, the words for anoint and to wipe clean, come not from Hebrew alone, but from Egypt's own rituals, the oil poured over priests as they were inducted into divine service, the alligator fat Masai used to anoint the elect. Even the name Jesus bears the stamp of Hellenistic fusion with Hebrew Yeshua, to save, and Greek honorifics, yet the man of history performed none of the grand salvations later ascribed to him. As we reawaken, we see how Hollywood and academic scholarship have systematically repainted our image. Reptilian overlords, bloodthirsty gods, and the Serpent of Eden are not myth but metaphors for the overlords who feasted on human sacrifice and cannibalistic cults, whose legacies endure in churches that speak Latin without song, in universities that erase our accomplishments, in textbooks that recast our monuments as the work of faceless Arabs or Turks. Now, as more African-descended scholars enter fields from microbiology to astrophysics, the truth can no longer be suppressed. Rediscovering our way, our language, our rituals, our ninefold path, releases us from mental bondage. No longer need we clutch textbooks. Memory flows from within, from the archives of our ancestors. Once we reclaim that sovereignty, we become masters again, ascending beyond old cycles into a new era of Black Renaissance. Animosity toward Black women has long been weaponized as a means of undermining Black men. For centuries, white supremacy invested billions, through slavery, the Great Depression, segregation, the civil rights backlash, the cocaine and heroin epidemics, to break Black men, only to discover these tactics failed. Eventually, the strategy shifted. Instead of attacking Black men directly, the system enlisted Black men, through the corrosive influence of popular culture, to tear down Black women. Once Black women were degraded, their unwavering support for Black men would waver, leaving Black men isolated and powerless. This dynamic emerged vividly when rap music began to gratuitously disrespect Black women, casting them as mere sexual objects, meat to be used and discarded. The consequences became clear in incidents like Nelly's infamous credit card stunt, which many saw as a betrayal of Black womanhood. Although Nelly later raised funds to save his sister's life after a tragic incident, the damage had been done. Black women rallied in immense collective power to defend one of their own, demonstrating precisely how central Black women are to the health of the community. His belated activism could not undo the profound hurt caused by objectifying and degrading the very women whose faith in Black men had remained steadfast through every other assault. This broader project of social manipulation is rooted in a deeper metaphysical framework that many call the doctrine of the gases or, more precisely, an ether, the primal, conscious, creative force from which all existence springs. In this system of thought, the universe unfolds through successive emanations. Conscious gas, and ether, gives rise to subtle ether, which over time materializes into the physical world. Human beings are conceived as a fusion of spirit and body, Ka and Ba, embodied in flesh to navigate the physical plane. Our spirits vibrate on higher frequencies, invisible to most, yet influencing the seen world. When humanity loses attunement with these higher frequencies, we become cut off from our true creative power. Music, or more fundamentally, tone, is one of the primary vehicles for attuning or detuning our vibrational frequency. The master teacher warns that modern music, with its emphasis on beat, rhythm, and altered states, often serves as a gateway for non-physical entities to inhabit human bodies, facilitated by alcohol, drugs, and artificial rhythms. Artists who adopt alter egos are said to be channeling these entities. To counter this, musicians must return to natural tones and ancient languages, our Unawakened tongue, to reclaim the healing and empowering potential of true vibration. This vibrational worldview extends to cosmology as well. Rather than a single solar system of 8 or 9 planets arrayed neatly around our sun, there exists a counterpart realm, Clarion, governed by the same stellar forces but vibrating on a different plane of existence. Ancient star chart keepers saw planets and cycles invisible to unaided modern telescopes and stigmatized as mythology by Western science. Today, advanced astronomy is only catching up to what our ancestors knew. There are worlds beyond the familiar 9, worlds that nourish and influence us through shared radiation and resonance. Our bodies, too, are meant to process solar energy directly. The concept of photovoltaic living, absorbing photon energy through our eyes and skin to generate biological voltage, points to a lost art of sun nourishment. Modern lifestyles, with limited sun exposure and processed diets, leave us chronically malnourished at the energetic level, contributing to widespread disease. Finally, the difficulty of awakening our people today stems from entrenched doctrines of passivity, the belief that salvation or deliverance rests with an external deity, not within our own hands. Under this God and devil framework, responsibility for our lives is abdicated, and suffering is rationalized as a divine test rather than a call to action. True empowerment requires reclaiming our ancient inheritance of self-responsibility, recognizing that knowledge is not a threat but the very means of breaking the spells that have bound us for centuries. According to the Holy Tablets, Chapter 1, Tablet 6, Verse 46, the universe was birthed 76 trillion years ago from triple darkness. Further in Tablet 8, Verses 21 to 23, we learn that our universe contains 19 galaxies, with a billion more beyond, stretching up to 26 billion light years, yet remains the smallest and innermost of 7 universes within a galactic confederation. As the scale increases, so too does the incomprehensibility of its circumference, truly infinite beyond human imagination. To chart this cosmic hierarchy, we start with the omniverse, all space without need of movement or growth, Tablet 8, Verse 39. From there it narrows to the multiverse, all things with movement and growth, then the triverse, realms interacting and placing, the dualverse, opposing places, and finally the universe itself, a point in space-time and matter, intertwined with countless supreme beings of nature. Turning inward, we ask, how do we attune ourselves to these cosmic truths? Our studies have shown that sound and tone, vibrational frequencies present in every molecule, are key. Words are voices, voices become sounds, sounds yield tones, and tones give rise to frequencies, notes, pitch, and key. When we chant the tone A, we align the cells of our human body, much like a major chord composed of A, F, and C unites male and female resonance. Male voices chant the A in the bass clef, while female voices join on the treble clef, forming a harmonic F major chord that grounds us in our proper frequency. Historically, Tibetan monks maintained a continuous chant in C for 24 hours, but for our lineage, the note F is more resonant with the human form. Thus, when we chant together in F, we restore our true tone and realign with the vibrational blueprint of nature. Beyond cosmic and personal alignment, our teachings reveal an ancient ritual context. Those born after 1970 carry new souls, and after 1973, golden children emerged, beings of dual resonance, both male and female, who served as gatekeepers to higher realms. Ancient priests used these gatekeepers to open planetary gates or pathways at biorhythmic times, 3 a.m., 9 p.m., and 9 a.m., facilitating the passage of spirits. Unfortunately, modern religious services often unwittingly open these gates every Sunday, inviting disembodied entities whose whispering suggestions manifest as what society calls mental illness. To combat these intrusive voices, our master teacher prescribes reading the Pa Tarak, the Way, which silences external spirits and reconnects us with our true inner voice. Equally important is reclaiming our ancestral languages. Thinking in English imposes a foreign tone upon our African heritage, making us more susceptible to these external frequencies. By restoring our original languages and tones, we reinforce our spiritual sovereignty and block unwanted influences. This synthesis of cosmology, sound science, ancient ritual, and cultural reclamation forms the foundation of our question and answer work. May these insights guide you toward deeper understanding and alignment with the infinite. Throughout our history, the mixing of bloodlines, beginning with the arrival of Caucasus, has fundamentally altered who we are, distancing us from the pure African lineages that once thrived in our ancestral homelands. Modern DNA tests boast of tracing our origins back to specific African regions, perhaps even to Nigeria with 5% certainty, but they fail to account for the ancient lineages lost to time. Those isolated genetic threads, now only visible through DNA remnants discovered in ancient remains, remain untraceable by current testing methods. When we submit our DNA, we must question, who holds this information, And can they truly identify our original roots when they lack the comprehensive scientific knowledge of those pure genetic lines? Our doctrine addresses this very crisis. We seek to awaken and cultivate the divine gene within us. Because of generations of mixed unions, we have strayed from the sacred laws of mating practiced before our contact with outsiders. Then, unions were arranged by priest-scientists who understood the science of sex, ensuring compatibility to preserve and strengthen our genetic heritage. Today, marriages are determined by superficial considerations, social standing, economic status, or personal attraction, rather than genetic harmony. Our doctrine calls for a return to those ancient practices, a reawakening of the divine essence embedded in our blood, nurturing it through intentional, informed unions. This systematic ignorance was deliberately maintained. Political and colonial powers carved Africa into separate nations, Sudan, Egypt, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, and more, to prevent unity among our people. They introduced alien religions, Mosesism, Jesusism, Mohammedism, imported by conquering Mesopotamians and Sumerians, all meant to sever our shared heritage. By relegating us to competing national identities and foreign faiths, they keep us divided and blind to our common African lineage. We all descend from one bloodline that existed before the invasions and genetic mingling brought by Persians, Indians, Greeks, and Romans. Egypt itself, once the cradle of our civilization, was pushed southward toward Sudan by hybrid rulers after Alexander the Great's conquest in 332 BCE and the subsequent Greco-Roman dynasties. Even Cleopatra VII, though of mixed heritage, stands as a masterful study of our original African roots and the erosion of our native lineage. On a biochemical level, our transformation is symbolized by the oxidation of iron, the base mineral in our blood, which, when deprived of magnesium and exposed to salt water, shifts from a green life force to a brown state. This oxidation mirrors the erosion of our original divine essence and underscores our need to replenish what was lost. In the present day, we witness similar oppression in Saudi Arabia, where Arabs persecute and expel Ethiopians, treating them as migrants and denying them their rights. This behavior reflects the true nature of their religion. The gods of a people reveal themselves through the actions of their followers. As Islam mistreats African migrants, it exposes the discord between their professed beliefs and their deeds. Our struggle is cyclical, bound to the rhythms of nature and time. Just as the seasons shift from life-filled summer to dormant winter, so do the forces of power rise and fall. We have reached a winter phase of our cultural cycle, but the sun's return heralds our re-emergence. The doctrine emphasizes that life and death, light and darkness, alternate in a perpetual circle. Recognizing this allows us to anticipate and shape our resurgence. When confronted with concepts like predestination, we distinguish between religious fatalism and scientific prediction. A prophet may be revered for foreseeing winter simply because he proclaimed what any astronomer could calculate based on Earth's orbit. True mastery lies in understanding these natural cycles, of seasons, of celestial bodies, and of genetic inheritance. Beyond our planet, our teachings hint at multiversal forces that influence our being. Some races, described as grafted or unnatural, act against nature itself. Their inevitable demise aligns with nature's immutable laws. Our ancestors, in harmony with life's cyclical power, have always known that when a force no longer aligns with nature's rhythm, it must give way. Now, as we awaken from ignorance, reclaim our divine genetics, and honor the ancient science of sex, we step into our summer cycle, a time of renewed power and unity. No external test or foreign doctrine can replace the knowledge held within our own blood. It is by nurturing that inner divinity and restoring our genetic lineage that we will truly rise together as one people. Nature itself governs the rise and fall of species. Just as the dinosaurs were destined by natural law to disappear, ensuring the world could evolve into its current state, so too does nature decide when any creature's time has come. We often applaud saving the bald eagle as a noble act, yet it is nature, not human sentiment, that determines which species thrive or fade. Our ancestors, deeply attuned to these rhythms, charted the cycles of life through careful observation and recording, what we now call science, from the Latin meaning to know. This is not a matter of superstition or prophetical speculation, but of systematic knowledge, experiential, evidential, and reasoned understanding. In our tradition, spiritual science is a framework built upon solid facts, wise reasoning, and deep understanding, never blind faith. Our master teacher provided countless points of reference so we could assemble a clear picture of who we truly are, rather than merely accepting inherited beliefs. We test every phenomenon, whether ancestral guidance, voices within, or even sightings of otherworldly vessels, against three criteria: experience, evidence, and reason. If we have 2 out of 3, we accept a thing as fact. For example, when you personally witness a craft in the sky, your direct experience confirms its existence, and reason affirms its reality, even if you lack photographic evidence for others. But not all crafts are created equal. An aerodynamic shape indicates a vessel designed within our atmosphere, whereas truly interdimensional or extraterrestrial ships often defy Hollywood stereotypes. To distinguish friend from foe among the stars, we rely on Baba, our spiritual guide. By following Baba's teachings, we receive the protection and blessings that come from disciplined adherence to right knowledge and right reasoning. This psychic self-defense shields us from deception by malevolent forces, whether they be lost spirits trapped by earthly attachments, or crafty deceivers peddling myths and blind faith. Inside each of us is a holographic mind, constantly defining what we see by referencing stored images and stories. That's why many prefer the most mystical or fantastical explanations, such as those found in popular religions or astrology, over simple, touchable reality. But Nuwaupu teaches us to favor tangible confirmation over myth and to build our worldview upon the solidity of reasoned truth. Our master teacher also revealed the grand structure of the cosmos. 9 etheric beings initiated primary creation, triple darkness preceded light, energy, matter, time, space, place, body, soul, and spirit, and later, triple light, sunlight, lightning, and fire, brought full illumination. Our universe contains 19 galaxies, one among billions, and is itself the innermost of 7 universes in a galactic federation. Remarkably, our Milky Way was once one of 19 planets orbiting a massive sun called Salarina. When Salarina collapsed, its planets exploded outward, forming the galaxies we now inhabit. On a personal level, our DNA responds to the environment and information it receives. Just as a single fertilized cell diversifies into skin, bone, and brain based on its surroundings, our genetic makeup transforms through the data we absorb. Immersion in Nuwaupu's right knowledge heals the adverse changes wrought by a world steeped in foreign culture. If instead we submerge ourselves in alien influences, movies, music, superficial spirituality, we develop the very Caucasus gene that distances us from our divine heritage. Within us dwell both Salafu, our blood relatives stretching back through the generations, and Nagaru, our cosmic overseers linked to the stars. These ancestors, whether seen or unseen, assist us when called upon, much as we once summoned a grandmother for a cup of water. But if we invoke powers beyond our own lineage or disregard the tested methods of experience, evidence, and reason, we leave ourselves vulnerable to deception. Ultimately, the path of right knowledge, right wisdom, right understanding, and sound reasoning, offers both cosmic perspective and practical protection. By anchoring ourselves in this spiritual science, we honor the wisdom of nature, align with our true ancestry, and stand ready to navigate any craft, terrestrial or otherwise, that may cross our path. Most life processes, indeed, much of creation itself, are underpinned by mathematics, from the rhythmic spirals of shells and sunflowers to the branching of trees and rivers. This order is beautifully captured by the Fibonacci series, a numerical sequence whose ratios converge on the golden mean, approximately 1.618. Wherever we see spirals in nature, from galaxies down to DNA helices, we see this series at work. When we speak of reclaiming our divine ether or life force, we're really talking about reactivating the full capacity of our being, mind, body, soul and spirit, in harmony with the natural order. Once we have learned to engage every part of our brain and every vibration of our soul, transcending the usual limits of three-dimensional perception, we can fold ourselves dimensionally and move freely between the physical and the spiritual realms. But this power comes with responsibility. Just as a pilot must be trained before unlocking an aircraft's full controls, so must we be raised to a higher state of consciousness before we wield such abilities safely and respectfully. Our planet itself is not merely a single, solid sphere, but a complex overlay of 8 harmonic tones or worlds, each containing 8 dimensions that coexist in the same space and time. Just as 2 musical notes played together can create harmony, or dissonance, so too do these dimensions interact through vibration. You are not merely a 3-dimensional body, your flesh, your soul and your spirit are simultaneously vibrating across these interwoven dimensions. At any moment, your spiritual counterpart may be walking beside you, just a half step off in frequency. Music is one way to sense and even shift these frequencies. In the 1980s and 90s, artists were tapping into extraterrestrial tonal inspirations, raising the pitch, altering the beat, to align listeners with subtler planes of existence. Over time, commercial pressures slowed those explorations, replacing them with predictable 4/4 rhythms and auto-tune. Today's ubiquitous 808 drum patterns and artificial vocal effects may feel good in the moment, but they largely keep us locked into narrow vibrational bands. To awaken fully, we must relearn to resonate with purer, less constrained frequencies. Different beings occupy different vibrational bands. To see across dimensions, one must match one's own vibratory rate to theirs, and that demands rigorous mental, emotional and ethical refinement. If you encounter a spirit or entity through trance, tongues, or other altered states, recognize that it may simply be an ancestral intelligence or a force that reflects your own inner energy. Words like demon or Holy Spirit are labels imposed by culture. The underlying reality is vibration, energy patterned in ways that transcend our inherited doctrines. This is why cultural context matters so deeply. When we travel or teach in lands whose ancestral traditions honor blood rites, or speak of jinn rather than warlocks or witches, we must respect each people's natural harmonics. What seems demonic through one cultural lens may be perfectly ordinary, and quite powerful, through another. A child who calls you across dimensions does so because you and that child share a unique frequency. Conversely, if you feel uneasy around certain practices, it may simply be a sign that those energies do not align with your own vibrational nature. Ultimately, true mastery is learning to wield your own energy consciously. The biblical injunction that healing comes not by my will but by thy will points to the fact that the power resides within us. When we step fully into that realization, when our DNA, our spirit and our mind are all tuned to the golden mean, we transcend mortality. We become, in essence, walking gateways between the seen and unseen, fully at home across all dimensions of existence. In our teachings, we learn to hold only to what we've personally experienced, supported by evidence, reason, and wisdom passed down by our master teacher. Without direct experience, there's no solid evidence, and even reasoning can only take us so far using the information we've been given. Within our doctrine, we accept that certain beings vibrate on frequencies beyond the physical. Some call these fairies or orbs of light, what most traditions label as ghosts or spirits. In our text Science of Healing, we explain how different spectral entities can manifest as lights in our physical plane and even interact with matter. This framework helps make sense of otherwise inexplicable phenomena, objects moving, strange lights appearing, by referencing principles of quantum physics and vibration. Intoxicants disrupt the divine balance of body and mind that we strive to maintain. In practice, we adhere to the stricter guidance, avoiding all such substances so that our consciousness remains clear. Some ask, what about natural remedies? I know people who smoke marijuana to clear their lungs, but that's not necessary. Simple, powerful remedies like garlic act as natural antibiotics and support respiratory health without chemicals. Our master teacher prescribes a universal diet of whole, unprocessed foods, and emphasizes studying the human body so we understand what nourishes us and what harms us. In our shared history, isolated communities didn't inherit the array of illnesses we face today. Over centuries of mixing, new vulnerabilities emerged. By learning our physiology, we can choose foods and herbs that truly heal. On the subject of interpersonal conduct, I once heard a sister worry that speaking positively about others might cross into gossip. The distinction is clear. Gossip passes unverified rumors, often distorted through retelling. The candy was stolen becomes the sister stole the Christmas tree. Word on flesh, by contrast, is first-hand testimony. You saw it, you know it, and you share it responsibly only when it matters for safety or justice. Uplifting testimonies of a sister's faithfulness or perseverance are neither gossip nor rumor, they're encouragement. Another question, is modern astrology as accurate as ancient Egyptian systems? With today's supercomputers, satellites, and telescopes, scientists can map stars with incredible precision, but only over a few millennia. Our ancestors, the true keepers of time, recorded star cycles across tens of thousands of years. The Dogon of West Africa, for example, possessed precise star maps for Sirius and its companions centuries before modern detection. When Europeans discovered Sirius B in the 19th century, they were astonished to find the Dogon had known of it for generations. In Egypt and Nubia, megalithic sites like Nabta Playa align stones to the rising stars, and the distances between markers correspond almost exactly to the light years separating our sun from those stars. Such feats testify to an ancient mastery of astronomy that today's technology is merely rediscovering. This depth of knowledge extends to the spiritual realm, too. We speak of both exoteric, public, and esoteric, hidden, meanings. A simple symbol, a flowing line, might signify water to the uninitiated, yet hold multiple deeper lessons for those who know. Our teachings have always layered meaning in this way, ensuring sacred truths remain protected while accessible paths guide newcomers. Finally, there's the matter of planes of existence. We learn that the physical realm imprints thought forms onto the ethereal, a realm of consciousness where ideas dwell. The plane of force is the vibrational state through which those forms manifest physically, the life force in us that grows muscles under resistance, the spirit that animates matter. Just as hydrogen fuses into helium to power the sun, so etheric elements combine to give birth to spiritual life. Everything that happens here first exists in another vibration, then trickles down into our tangible world. Understanding this helps us navigate both dream and waking states, recognizing that every sleep vision, every revelation, echoes from the greater reality of the ethereal and the plane of force. So, while I can't claim to know every detail of your own encounters, I can share the framework, rooted in experience, evidence, and the wisdom of our master teacher, that helps us interpret them. Energies beyond form, dietary discipline to preserve our divine balance, the fine line between harmful gossip and righteous warning, the true legacy of ancient astronomy, the layered meanings behind sacred symbols, and the interplay of force and spirit that underpins all manifestation. With this armor of knowledge, you're better equipped to understand whatever experiences arise on your path. One topic that often arises is the 30 personalities. Who are they, where do they come from, and why do some seem intent on holding us back? The answer lies in our ancestral heritage. These personalities are the voices of our forebears, whose unresolved desires and regrets have become embedded in our bloodline. If an ancestor led a self-indulgent, destructive life, drinking, smoking, pursuing pleasure heedless of consequence, the patterns of those choices become part of their spirit. After death, they are trapped in the realm of their own self-made hell, and their voices whisper through our DNA, urging us toward the same self-destructive paths. They do not necessarily seek to aid us. Their unresolved cravings can drown out our inner guidance. Our doctrine teaches that true mastery begins with self-knowledge. As our master teacher emphasized decades ago, we must learn ourselves thoroughly to distinguish our own will from these ancestral voices. When we give in to drink, drugs, or careless lust, we allow those trapped spirits to commandeer our minds and bodies, often making choices we later regret, because it feels natural or irresistible. This is why some people suffer from behaviors akin to dissociation or multiple personality disorder. They are being driven by these 30 separate ancestral impulses. Binding these spirits is not a mystical ritual but a matter of conscious choice and disciplined awareness. First, become aware that these urges are not your own true self. Then, refuse to act on them, to bind them by withholding consent. Over time, by consistently aligning your actions with what is genuinely beneficial and in harmony with your inner nature, you suppress the discordant ancestral whispers. You do not eradicate them, they remain part of your lineage, but you refuse to empower them. Conversely, some ancestral voices can be wise and supportive. Differentiating helpful from harmful guidance requires ongoing discernment. In moments of clarity, when you are calm and centered, you can hear the voices that encourage your highest good, your agreed path of growth and service. Those you honor, the others you bind. Freeing them, and thereby freeing yourself, comes as you liberate your entire bloodline. Each of us bears responsibility not only for our own spirits but for those who came before and those who will come after. When you live in alignment with your true nature, compassionate, just, and attuned to positive vibration, you create a ripple that uplifts your ancestors' spirits. In turn, when you teach your children to know and honor their natural essence, you strengthen the entire lineage. Our master teacher has provided us with several key texts, which outlines how to recognize and bind the 30 spirits. In Genetic Kiss, for example, page 1, verse 6 declares, "You must bind the 30 spirits that seek to control you, the very voices of your own Salafu, who live in the image of the beast and, at moment of death, have been trapped in his hell." It goes on to explain that these voices whisper to your mind and heart, dictating what seems right or wrong, agreeable or disagreeable. Your task is to choose which whispers to follow. In practice, binding means 1. Recognize the voice, that urge to overindulge is not me. 2. Consciously decide not to obey, I will not consume that substance, and 3. Reaffirm your true will, I act in ways that honor my higher purpose. Over time, those spirits lose their power to drive you. If communal ritual or meditation suits you, you may incorporate those, but the essence is your daily, mindful choices. Finally, some ask about the origins of the Anunnaki and the Nagaru, whether they come from the same realm. Though that is a rich topic in our advanced texts, the key point here is that different extraterrestrial intelligences have influenced life on Earth, some in agreement with our highest principles, others not. Just as with our ancestral spirits, the first step is awareness, studying the etymology of Anunnaki and Nagaru, the legends of Tamari, and the cosmic cycles of sun and moon doctrine. By discerning each being's vibration, agreeable or disagreeable, you learn whom to honor and whom to bind. In the earliest records of ancient Sumer, the planet we call Earth bore one of its oldest known names, Ki, rendered in Sumerian as the sign for land or earth. Its creator deity was An, meaning he who was on high, the supreme sky god. From this root we also derive the Greek geo, as in geometry, geography, preserving in our language today the memory of those ancient thinkers. Interrupting the cosmic void beyond our solar system is a mysterious wanderer they called Nibiru, the crossing or planet of transition. 5 times the size of Earth, Nibiru completes its elongated orbit and returns to our skies approximately every 3,600 years. According to those Sumerian texts, Nibiru is home to 144,000 distinct species, each organized under different cosmic commands, Anu for the sky, Enlil for the air, Ea for the waters, and so forth, just as we humans answer to governments on Earth. When beings from Nibiru first descended, they were welcomed by the natives, later called Anu by the Sumerians. Hence, the term Anunnaki simply means those of Anu, but it does not imply that every being under Anu's command was a native of Nibiru. Rather, the Anunnaki included specialists dispatched to Earth for particular missions, mining precious metals, experimenting genetically, or sharing technologies. These envoys worked under the authority of planetary councils, the 24 elders of Nibiru and the 144 governors who oversaw the stars between the 18th galaxy, our Milky Way, and the 19th beyond. Long before these off-world visitors arrived, however, Earth was already seeded by the Nagaru, the original inhabitants whose lineage extended back nearly 8 million years, according to modern geology. The Nagaru were born of the planet itself, living, breathing genetics in tune with Earth's electromagnetic grid, and their descendants became the diverse races we know today. Whenever foreign species sought residence here, they had to obtain permission from that planetary authority, often through intermediaries, just as settlers must today secure visas and charters. Those who complied were assimilated. Those who violated cosmic law sometimes sparked interstellar conflicts. Among the notable figures who walked the ancient world were Tahuti, the Greek Hermes, Marduk, whom some called Marduk, and Melchizedek, known in later traditions as the King of Peace or Salam. Each served as an avatar or master teacher, channeling a specific spirit or aspect of divine will to guide humanity's evolution. Over millennia, our myths and scriptures collected fragments of their messages, sometimes merging their identities, sometimes splitting them, so that by the time of Egypt and Mesopotamia they appeared under many names and guises. Genetic crossbreeding also played a critical role in shaping human diversity. Certain Anunnaki, like Nudimmud, Enki, took wives among the Nagaru, merging off-world genes with earthling lineages. Their offspring included the albino branches, later identified with Caucasus, while further experiments produced other groups, such as those traced to South Asia. These events are reflected, some say, in the mitochondrial DNA record, where foreign mitochondrial lines appear at intervals between roughly 8,400 and 6,000 years ago. Yet through all these interactions, one truth stands constant: the original creators of Earth were its women. Biologically and spiritually, the female carries the greater portion of the genetic code. The X chromosome is 5 times larger than the male's Y, and alone gives birth to new life. In the cosmos, this creative power makes her the true goddess of any world. Our responsibility as men, then, is to protect and support her, to uphold her sovereignty, preserve the integrity of her bloodline, and restore her to the honored position she once held in both myth and reality. This restoration is already underway. As the planet's electromagnetic poles shift in Africa, sacred cradle of the Nagaru, begins to reawaken, the feminine principle re-emerges to guide our collective evolution. By the early 22nd century, female leadership will have become universal. For the next 6,000 years, that radiant energy will infuse every aspect of human experience, aligning us once again with the deeper morphogenetic codes of Earth itself. In understanding these ancient dynamics, of Nibiru's long voyage, of the Anunnaki emissaries, of the Nagaru origin, and of the primordial goddess, we come to see that Earth's story is not merely terrestrial, but a nexus where cosmic orders converge. And as we attune ourselves to that grand design, we fulfill our highest purpose, to stand as stewards of this living planet, honoring both our ancestral past and the divine potential of every human soul. They feared our ancestors, and they feared what our unity would reveal, how our blood and its combinations carry power they could not control. Today, we see this rotation of the blood play out. Some among us progress, some regress, as the God gene within emerges. Our reality is determined by what we accept as real, grounded in observable fact rather than superstition or hollow dogma. True understanding must come from the living source of life itself, the breath blown into our nostrils. Yet the churches fail to explain the physiological foundations, how a pregnant woman's nasal cavities expand, her mucus thickens, and how that very breath reaches the womb, shaping the life within. If presented scientifically, we might awaken to our divinity. Originally, we came to this planet for resources, not domination, but domination is woven into our genes. As our crafts traversed other realms, our influence spread. Salvation for African peoples lies in reclaiming our heritage and unifying in our own culture. Like Moses, himself a product of the school of Thoth, who was rejected by his own people and lost them their freedom, Our leaders have often been dismissed by those they sought to uplift, only to be embraced later when the oppressor's hand no longer feeds them. One significant seed was planted in 1945, Pa Nabab Yanun, whose birthday coincides with the founding of the United Nations, a cosmic Stargate moment. His voice carries 3 tones in one, resonating with the structure of DNA's alkaline base pairs. No decoding is needed. Those whose genes are prepared respond immediately, awakened by the precise frequency and timing. Russian biophysicists have shown that chromosomes behave like holographic lasers, modulated by sound to influence genetic information, proof that language and DNA share a common vibrational structure. When we speak our native tongue, we activate ancestral memory encoded in our blood. Our people, the original jet flesh and blood deities of this planet, were first brought here by natural celestial forces. From the deep waters we emerged upon the dry land amid tidal waves and hurricanes, the first to stand, walk, and speak. Of the 9 original races, only the Tahites survived those cataclysms. They alone withstood the planet's infancy, their descendants displaying 4 distinct physical features, the very tall, the very short, and those in between, a testament to our mixed heritage. Ramses himself stood at 5 feet 6 inches, our contemporary average, reflecting this union. Yet most remain asleep, unawakened to their own power. It is our responsibility, those of us who hear, to awaken the rest. A single word or gesture can spark recognition. You overstand? We must teach that overstanding means transcending imposed mental confines and embracing our sovereignty. We are not the man's boys or baby, we are gods in our own right. As Baba taught, true liberation comes through love and unity, questioning inherited beliefs and recognizing our divine lineage. His mission, to plant knowledge, instill love, and rekindle self-respect, is the first resurrection of our consciousness. Scripture itself hints at this. Those with ears to hear will perceive the voice of many waters, 3 tones that unlock our stargate. Our salvation lies in reclaiming our genes, our language, and our unity, so that we may walk unbowed in the reality we choose to embrace. In the earliest days, before the rise of the devil, the god Enki, also called Ea, descended beneath the seas to Africa. There, he mixed his divine seed with the indigenous African women, and their descendants inherited thick, wavy hair. Much later, other foreign seed was introduced by force. Some women were raped, and their children grew fine, fur-like hair. The holy tablets describe our earliest reptilian stage, grafted from the undersea beings who first inhabited this world. In that era, we glowed green both in the seas and on land. Because our body's predominant element is iron, we rusted over time into a reddish-brown hue, becoming the people Enki called Nagaru, Sumerian for wise keepers of secrets and protectors of the 720 degrees whisper. In Exodus 3:14, rendered in Hebrew, Enki calls himself I will be whomever I will be, reflecting his dual heritage, half reptilian, through his mother Namu, daughter of the benevolent undersea ruler Olalu, and half sky lord, through his father Anu. His drifting among our ancestors and his mixed progeny explain why humans still carry traces of gill folds as fetuses, webbed fingers, and a deep affinity for water, echoes of our aquatic origins. Even the green birthmarks sometimes seen on newborns among our people recall that first, glowing green form. Long before Enki's arrival 500,000 years ago, other undersea beings, called Ogdoads, Kemi-Enu, Rashanat, or by names such as Nomos, Okan, Oguragwaba, Teu, and Takaka, lived deep in Earth's waters as serpent-like ancestors. These 8 river angels came in 4 genetic pairs, each pair marking a shift in undersea life that would later seed humanity's evolution onto land through great storms and tsunamis. Some of these aquatic beings remain hidden beneath the waves to this day. When Enki rebelled against his father Anu's decree, jealous of Olalu's peaceful rule, he sowed discord among the undersea peoples and instigated wars. As the conflict grew, his half-reptilian nature and divine ambition drove him to reshape the planet, forging new lines of power and dominion above and below the surface. Through later epochs, genetic crossings continued. Dravidian tribes washed ashore along Africa's coasts and, over millennia, mixed again in the Caribbean islands. Meanwhile, human lineages diversified into 24 distinct races. By 4000 BCE, the era known in scripture and the Quran as the birth of the 3 races, only 3 remained: Nagar, Negroids, Mongoloids, and Caucasoids, with Nagar being the oldest. Even today, traces of those ancient crosses live in us, our hair texture, our skin's undertones, and, spiritually, in the lower voices or impulses that whisper alien urges within our minds, remnants of ancestors violated or co-opted by foreign seed. Yet our tradition teaches that by following the way, Patarak, practicing psychic self-defense, and heeding the higher guidance of our true forebears, we can resist those foreign impulses and ascend to our full ancestral potential. Thus, each student must recognize and suppress the alien voices that are not of their higher nature, reaffirming our lineage as the original guardians of Earth's deep secrets.